Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Malthaus Games podcast. This is episode number 63. It is Saturday, April 4th. This will be releasing April 5th.
But days of the week don't exist anymore. We're in quarantine.
It feels like they don't exist, for sure. My name is Delton. I'll be your host this evening, and with me today is my lovely wife and yellow player, Haley.
Hattie. It doesn't help that I actually work today, too, and so my days of the week schedule's all jacked up.
That's very true. It's weird to have to do something on a Saturday, but like for you, it makes sense because it was a training, but...
Yeah, we give trainings at our work, and generally they're in-person trainings, but, being that it is April 2020, for those of you listening to this probably eons from now, we're safer at home because our governor has not yet put in shelter in place, which is ridiculous. But our Board of Behavioral Health recently said that we can start streaming our trainings instead of doing them in live person. So that way we therapists can still get our continuing education credits without getting the plague.
Which is a very good thing.
A very good thing.
There's not been a whole lot we can do being on quarantine. That's been something we are experiencing and learning. We've watched a lot of TV.
I listened to the rain and I played guitar.
That's true. We got our back fence replaced, did some yard work.
Took a bath for the first time in about 4 years.
Yeah, we never take baths. She means we shower. Not that she's dirty. But we have a bathtub in the guest bathroom that we never use.
Dirty. Such a dirty girl.
Wasn't that on that one playlist I had?
Yeah, it was.
I thought so.
But yeah, I took a bath. You have no idea. If you haven't taken a bath in at least a year, you forget just how relaxing it is. I had a bath. I put like bubbles, and I had this bath bomb that was given to me as a gift like 4 years ago, and I threw that in there, and I got a book, and we were kind of getting low on our alcohol, so I put tequila in a La Croix, and it was the most basic drink, but by God, it got the job done, and it was a relaxing experience.
She means a LaCroix.
LaCroix.
A LaCroix. She put, you say vodka in LaCroix?
No, tequila, because I ran out of vodka.
Oh.
Like, it was gin, and then it was vodka, and then it was tequila, and probably next to me putting Malibu rum in it, because that's what's next on the list.
We need to do liquor delivery, because Oklahoma has legalized it temporarily where you can have liquor delivered.
Until April 30th for now.
So we should just do that sometime to restock our vodka.
Gates and Ben had both suggested on Twitter I do like a review of our liquor cabinet liquors and board games. So I really want to do, and I'm going to speak this into the universe so I actually get it done this week. I want to do like many stupid unedited videos where I pair a 2-player game with some of the random liquor that friends and classmates and old coworkers have left at our house as we've done parties. So we have like Jolly Rancher vodka. I have like 3 bottles of peppermint schnapps. I have a bottle of Goldschlager. I have the most random assortment of liquor, and it's all terrible. Like it's not the good kind of peppermint schnapps. It's like the $8 or $7.88 for a handle schnapps. But by God, I'll get the job done. I bet you I can pair it with some good 2-player games. So stay tuned.
We'll have to do that. We'll just do it and post it to just straight up video, no edits, like you said.
No edits, man. It's coming in hot.
That'll be pretty great. But aside from that, like I said, we've replaced the back fence, done some yard work, we've went on walks in the neighborhood, and I'm going to go ahead and say I'm very glad that Roughtail Brewing has moved literally 3 miles down the road from us instead of down in Midwest City, which was like a 30-minute drive.
I have left my house twice in 2.5 weeks. Both times we're doing their pickup for beer.
Because we ran out of beer and we need it for the podcast, but also...
Oh, yeah, that's the only reason.
We need it in general. The first beer today we've already cracked and poured and have ready to drink because, that's how we are. This is their Polar Eclipse Imperial Stout, which I don't know if we've had it on the podcast before, but it's a very good Imperial Stout. But however, this is a special one because this is rum barrel aged. It's a 12-ounce can. It does not say an alcohol content, and it says it's best served at 50 to 55 degrees, which it's, I think, a little over that.
Which I picked that up last night, and the taproom manager said that we picked the perfect day to get it because it's a rainy day. It is probably about 45 degrees here in Oklahoma.
Yesterday, it was colder than that.
Yeah, it was 36 yesterday whenever I went to get it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And today I think it's in the high in the 40s. And so this should warm us right up before we have another 90-degree day on Tuesday.
It is black as night. You cannot see through it at all. Let's give it a whiff.
Oh my God, it smells wonderful.
So I smell like a sugary,
it's like toffee.
Almost, yeah.
Like toffee or like homemade caramel.
It's like a not a burnt sugar, but like a caramelized sugar. I smell that in there. It just smells so sweet, and I know that's from the rum barrels.
Oh God, are you ready for a
All
drink?
right, go for a drink. I'm gonna narrate your drinking process. Haley takes a sip and puts her glass down, swallows, and is mind blown by the looks of it.
Oh man, it tastes like if you had the sugar cookies that are a little more burnt, but they're not like burnt, they're like a little more toasted on the pan.
Yeah.
That's what this tastes like.
Definitely. The mouthfeel is like it's not syrupy, but it's thick, if that makes any sense. It's not like lingering thick, but it's definitely not a thin beer. When you take a drink, it's got substance. It's like the difference between whole milk and skim milk. This is whole milk. There's a substance to it, a weight.
You dip that caramel cookie in that whole milk, man. And this beer was $10 for one 12-ounce can.
It's because it's so good.
Like their crowlers, we're gonna drink one of their crowlers later. They're like $6 to $10 for a 30-ounce can. This is one 12-ounce can that was $10, and it is worth it. Oh my gosh, it's delicious.
It's very malty, very sugary, very sweet. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny hint of the ethanol in the backside. There's basically no no forward hop profile as you would expect in an imperial stout. You wouldn't expect there to be a lot of hop profile, and I cannot tell. It's very good. It's super sweet. We're both just drinking it, trying to come up with something else to say. And
I know. I kind of forgot we had the podcast for a second. I'm just
I
sitting here
know.
drinking it, thinking about like, oh man, this is good. And I was like, oh snap, we're actually being recorded.
It's really, really good. Roughtail is up here just outside of Edmond on Memorial and Santa Fe. Is their brand new brewery that they built.
On the southwest corner of Memorial and Santa Fe.
And they have basically a drive-up window. You pull up and run up to the window and get your beer, purchase it, and you can leave. And I'm so happy it's right here because they're one of the best breweries in Oklahoma. They're one of the first craft breweries that really opened up back in 2012. And they just make good stuff, and I'm very glad we can get it. And this is a really good beer.
Yes.
This is not something you would want to drink on a hot day.
No, it is not. So we picked the perfect day to record this podcast. That's why we waited till the day before to record the podcast
100%.
because it's the perfect weather for this beer, right?
Exactly. I guess the only other thing we've been doing aside from that is we watched Tiger King on Netflix, which is about Joe Exotic and his zoo in Oklahoma. So it's something that we've known about him for years.
Dude, Joe Exotic follows me on Twitter. We go way back.
It's crazy. It's a crazy documentary. I feel bad for the animals. That's the one big outcome from the whole thing is I just feel bad for all the animals. And all of the people are nuts.
I never knew how wild he really was. Like, for the website I write for, Patrick and some of the other contributors had written a lot about him. And I'd written an article or two about him, and like we'd interacted some on Twitter. Like I said, he follows me, I follow him. So there's been a little interaction, but I didn't really realize the extent of the batshittery.
Yeah.
And I'm just convinced that now that all tiger owners are narcissists.
I think you have to be to want to own a tiger.
It was wild, man.
It's crazy. I highly recommend watching it. Just be prepared to be upset in several spots. Like, nothing ever crazily bad, but it just kind of is. Sometimes it's a bit of a downer.
I'm still really sad I didn't get my yard sign. I was supposed to get a Joe Exotic for governor yard sign, but then he went to prison. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I guess spoiler alert. I don't know. That happened like a year or two ago.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So
I guess it's not a spoiler for us, but yeah, those who.
I guess the beginning of the whole thing, though, he talks out of prison, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's crazy. We recommend watching that on Netflix for sure.
He's kind of terrible to the animals, and I feel really bad for them, but it's still intriguing.
It's still very intriguing. But aside from that, we haven't done a whole lot because we're doing quarantine. Aside from I had to start going back to work this week because I'm definitely going to be needed with how busy we're about to be. But that's pretty much that.
I do want to give a shout out to someone who's awesome, though.
Who's that?
Cass.
Oh, for sure.
So Cass is working as an epidemiologist for the state of Oklahoma, which I don't know if you knew this right now, but we are kind of in the middle of a global pandemic. And she has been pulling hours upon hours upon hours to help educate the public and make sure that she is advocating for proper health treatment and contagion control and all sorts of fancy words that I probably don't even understand. But we just want to say thank you to Cass and all of the other epidemiologists, healthcare workers, and essential workers like the grocery store employees and the craft beer brewers. But Cass, thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thanks, friend. I guess while we're thanking friends, I'll go ahead and shout out Allison, Jesse, and Catherine, our amazing Patreon backers. Thank you all for supporting the podcast and helping us keep this up. If anybody wants to be like them, you can check us out, patreon.com/malthausgames, Malthaus games.
And with that, shall we get into the game de la episode?
Let's move to the game. Oh, here's the door. It's straight ahead. It's a game. So the game for today is a small card game that acts like a big board game, is kind of how I like to view it. It is Oh My Goods. Now this is a very small box card game that looks like Mayfair Games put it out. Look out, Spiele. I wonder who is putting it out now, because I don't know if Mayfair's still technically going to be printing anything.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, who knows? But Oh My Goods is a small card game. I'm trying to find all of the stuff. It is designed by Alexander Pfister, who is one of my favorite, if not becoming my favorite designer. The graphic design and art of Oh My Goods is done by my personal favorite, Clemens Franz. So Oh My Goods is a very interesting card game that I like to use as an example of one of my favorite card games or favorite games that uses multi-use cards. So the way the game is going to play is you play over however many rounds it takes to finish the game, and in each round there are 4 phases. Now, the cards that you have are optionally used for 3 different things. The back of the card shows a crate, which acts as a good, so when a building produces a good, a card goes on top of it, sort of like Race for the Galaxy style, and that card is now considered the resource that building produces. The front side of the card is the building itself that has the cost, the point reward, and it tells you what resources you need to make goods and how you can have chain reactions. And then the front of the card also has a little symbol for its third use that is used in setting up the round for the sunrise and sunset, as well as being used as a resource from your hand. So there's already a ton of stuff going on with this game. The game goes through 4 phases. You discard your hand if you want, and you draw some cards. You lay cards off the top of the deck face up until a little sun symbol is shown on one of them. That's when sunrise happens. You take your worker and decide what building you want him to try to make goods at. You then flip more cards from the top of the deck out on the field until you get another sun, showing that that's the sunset. Then you produce, if you can, based on those cards you flipped out and the resources on them, or optionally adding resources from your hand. You can produce goods on a card, chain reaction if you can, using more cards from your hand, and then start the next round over. It already sounds complicated, and I swear this game is one of the hardest games for me to teach.
Oh my gosh, I don't think that I really understood the game until my 3rd play, and only today did I actually win.
She beat me by 2 points. It was very close. It was 20-18.
And I feel like I still need to play it 2 or 3 times before I really get a grasp on it. Because I understand like the multi-use cards, but for me it's been a challenge navigating, connecting all of the chaining effects. And so this game I actually did chain finally, and I had cards play off each other. My last round I was able to activate like 4 out of my 6 chains I had out. And so I feel like I'm actually starting to get it. But again, I need to play it a couple more times so I can really say, okay, I understand this game.
So what she means by chains, and I mentioned chain reaction as well, is these buildings all have some sort of good they produce. Now, when you do the sunset and sunrise and sunset phases, like I said, you lay cards out face up, they show a little resource. On every building you have in front of you, which you can add more later by spending money, on every building you have in front of you, on the bottom, on the left, it has a cost of certain resources, and you want to fulfill those costs to be able to make their goods, which are shown in the center of the bottom, by the cards laid out for sunrise, sunset, and by discarding cards from your hand. So let's say your initial one, if it takes 2 clay and 1 wood, and let's say there's 2 clay out in the sunrise, sunset cards, and you have a wood in your hand, you can discard it, and that will make you, depending on what you do, some goods that are charcoal. Now you have a charcoal good that's worth 1 coin. Other cards can then have some resource they make, like bricks. And if you make those bricks, you then have the option of chaining. And let's say for those bricks, which is what happened in my game, on the bottom right, so bottom left is the resources needed for the bottom middle good that you can make, and then the chain resources are on the bottom right. After I make the initial goods, I can use the chain, and for brick, it was adding coal to my charcoal, like adding like a natural coal or obsidian or something like that. So I would take the card good from my charcoal stack, put it on the brick, and burn one of those coal or whatever from my hand, and now I have chain reacted and turned basically a 1 value good into a 2 value good.
And the first 2 times I played this, I was confused as hell.
It's really hard to explain.
I did not grasp it. I just
No.
floundered. I think I got like 3 points and Dalton got like 42. And I was like, what am I not understanding?
It's
and
rough.
so, like, literally today was the first time that I won. I just barely scrimped by. I mean, today was also the first time I really feel like I'm understanding it. And so you gotta be patient with this game. You have to read the rules. I probably should have read them myself. Not that Delton's not a good explainer, but I probably should have read them myself to better understand it. But man, it is a doozy, but it's actually really fun and really engaging.
I really enjoy it. So I'm going to stop trying to teach you the game because, like Haley said, it's tough. I really recommend watching a playthrough video, reading the rulebook yourself, looking at the cards. It's just very interesting. Now, what I really enjoy about the game are you constantly have decisions to make. You have a decision on, do I burn this hand or keep it? You can't burn part of it. You have to burn all of it. If you do, then you'll draw up to that many. So the first thing on your turn is you have a decision of get rid of these cards or keep these cards. Then after the sunrise phase happens, you decide, okay, well, does my worker work efficiently where you get more goods, or does he work lazily where you can bypass one resource but only make 1 good instead of 2? Then also, are you going to put him? What building is he going to work on? Then you can decide, do I want to potentially build a building from my hand or not? If I choose to potentially build one, it's not there as a resource after the sunset phase when we build stuff. And it's like, oh my goodness, I have to decide all this stuff. And then after the sunset phase, you actually do your things. And if you can chain react, and then if you don't build the building, you can also get another companion worker to help. And it's like I'm constantly making decisions, and every decision you make for a card based on one aspect of it makes a decision based on the other aspect. So you may not want this card because it's expensive. However, it chains really well with another one of your cards. However, you could use the resource right now to go ahead and chain and make a new good. And there's just constantly something to make a decision on. And so it's engaging in that aspect. And I really enjoy always having to think about my turn.
It helps you brush up on your German too, because all of the terms are in German and English.
Yeah, the big letters are German, and then in small letters it has the English underneath, which I think is neat.
Du meine Güter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy multi-use cards as well. That's something that I absolutely love in games. And this one does it so spectacularly well that it's a deck of cards. It's a single deck of cards, essentially, along with a couple other, that takes 30 to 45 minutes to play. So that tells you the complexity of the game, but also you could fit it in your pocket if you wanted to, or you could fit it in a purse or in your backpack.
Yeah, it goes back to like episode 2. We talk about purse games. It's definitely a purse game.
Now, the table you play on needs to be kind of big, and I don't know about playing this with 4 people. It might be a little slow, but I really enjoy this game, especially at 2. I really think that that's fun. But I also like the expansion, Longsdale in Revolt, which is like a story mode of this game. It explains the village and how it came to be. I like that it has a solo variant, so I can actually play through this myself, try to get through the story, and it helps me learn the game better as well.
Which brings us to our topic for today. Hey, what can I get you?
I'd like a topic.
Any special way?
Make it a top shelf topic.
Coming up. Enjoy.
So the topic for today that we decided to make was gaming in quarantine. And what we mean by that is a lot of people are stuck at home right now. Some people just absolutely cannot leave. Some people aren't able to go to work because their work's not open. So,
or if you do have to go to work, you kind of got to come straight home.
Exactly.
There's especially in Oklahoma, there's a lot of cities right now with curfews. And so you can't actually leave your house after a certain time. Unless it's for an emergency, you know.
Exactly. And so everybody's having to do that and stay secluded. So we wanted to think about, how can you get your gaming itch taken care of? How can you scratch that gaming itch while in quarantine? One of the things that I think is the easiest thing is, no matter how many people live in your home, you can always play games by yourself if that's something that you choose to do. And oh my goods, with the Longsdale and Revolt expansion, which I do really enjoy, you can play it by yourself. So I was like, that kind of is an easy tie-in there.
And a lot of roll and writes are the same way. So take Welcome to Cat Sudoku. We can talk about Railroad Inc. If you wanted to, each of those could be a solo game, but you're just trying to beat your own score.
Exactly, and they usually have solo rules in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that is definitely worth looking out for, is there's a lot of games with solo. I know that, and thank goodness for this, even though we haven't taken part of it, I know a lot of people have. A lot of our local game stores are doing delivery, where you call them or go online, purchase a game, and they will schedule a day to drive by and drop it at your front porch. And I think that is the most awesome thing because it's helping us. Like, if we were wanting to get a new game, we just felt stale, that's a possibility. If we wanted a game that was solo because, we just didn't want to do anything else, or we were keeping separated from each other because, someone had to leave, something like that, whatever your circumstance, you could then get the game in. And I know a lot of game shops are doing that.
I had no idea that was a thing. We might have to break our no game buying rule
Yeah.
just to support our friendly local game shop.
Yeah, PB&J is doing delivery, and I think Edmund Unplugged is also started delivery. I know that he was doing curbside,
Mhm.
but I think that Mike might be doing delivery as well. I'll have to look that up.
Right on, I love that. No, we've talked so far a lot about little games. There's actually a lot of Euro games that you can play and solo variants as well. One of those is what is this Scythe? So Scythe is a mega behemoth of a game, but there is variations where you can play by yourself or play with proxy players, right?
I'm not sure the exact system that's built into the game, but yes, it's essentially has like randomly controlled characters that make decisions based off how the game is going. And the good thing is, pretty much all Stonemaier games, Wingspan included, has a solo variant
Mhm.
because so many people already like playing games solo. So that just makes it even easier.
And viticulture.
And Viticulture definitely has a solo.
Take yourself out for a date, self-care, pour a glass of wine, and play some viticulture.
There you go. But there's a ton of games that do it. Just looking at my to be played shelf of games I haven't touched, Maracaibo has a solo variant. I believe Blackout Hong Kong also has a solo variant. I know that Agricola, you could technically play solo. There's a lot of games that have that ability.
Yeah, and so, if you're wanting to play those games, sometimes we have family members who are engaged in our hobby, and sometimes we don't. And, we just have different tastes. And so if you're at home or if you are in quarantine or shelter in place or safer at home, whatever it's called in your state, and you're really wanting to play those games, sometimes it might be fun to check out, is this going to be a fun game to play by myself? What's a cool solo variant? And even though a game doesn't have the rules for a solo variant, a lot of times you can look on Board Game Geek and you can find people say, "Hey, I made these modifications," or "I made these house rules and I made this a solo variant."
And there's a lot of times it's even the designer themselves, which I think is really neat. One of the other things I want to mention with solo games, a lot of the cooperative games are that way. So Pandemic, Ghost Stories. I don't know about games with a trader mechanic like Shadows over Camelot and Dead of Winter, but you can play Dead of Winter purely cooperative. You can play multiple characters at once. And I think that's something that games of that style and games that are dungeon crawl, so think of your Descents, your Imperial Assaults, your Mansions of Madness, things like that, you can play those controlling multiple characters, and essentially at that point you're playing an entertaining puzzle of a game. But it's something that's very fun, and like Ghost Stories is one of the hardest games in the world. No matter what, we can never beat that stupid game. But if I played it by myself, controlling 4 different people, and it's like, okay, do I think I could do it? Or is that putting myself at a bigger disadvantage? Because I can make all the moves, but I may be missing something somebody else would think of, but I can try it. Like,
Yeah.
there's all those things put together, and it's interesting, but cooperative games are definitely one you can do. And like I said, just play multiple characters, and it's super fun.
Yeah, and I mean, we think about solo play. Like we would always play solo play in solitaire. I mean, solitaire is a game that you play just by yourself.
Yep.
And so there's nothing wrong with playing a board game or playing a card game by yourself because we do it all the time.
And there's some that are made for it. There's a game called Onirim that I actually have an app for that is essentially a for one player game, but you can play 2. And it's the same with like Arkham Horror, the LCG, the card game. It's really built to be a one player game. It just happens to also play 2. So I think that there are games out there, if you look, that are easy to adapt to a solo player mindset. And sometimes it's just practicing your crokinole hits, trying to make sure you can sink that disc in the middle. But
That's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna become a crokinole master.
we need to play it again. It's been a while.
Oh, can we do
And I
that
love it.
tomorrow?
We'll do that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, you have your board wax, right?
Yes, I waxed it.
Sweet action.
I need to wax it again, but I have waxed it at least once, and I also taped the pegs that way they don't fall out
Oh, I'm excited. We gotta
because I
play
have
that.
the clock. It's hanging on the wall.
Yes, that the
Yep.
cats have chewed on.
That's very true. They keep chewing on the clock hands.
And so there's also ways that you can play board games with others without leaving your home. Do you want to kind of talk about that, Del?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite things to do is there are a lot of board game apps on your phone or iPad, however you want to look at that, or tablets. There are a ton. Like I'm going to grab my phone right now and pull it up because I have so many.
Like I know that you have Twilight Struggle. I know my mom has Cat Lady.
Yes, exactly. And the good thing about these are you can play them solo, but there is also asynchronous play on 99% of them, which means I take a turn, it alerts my opponent my turn's over, and whenever they get a chance, they can open it and take their turn. Yes, that might be a little slow. However, it's still really entertaining. So just in board games, not including Stardew Valley, I have Waterdeep. So I can't think of the full name of that game. Uh, oh my goodness, Dungeons and Dragons, Lords of Waterdeep. I have Galaxy Trucker. I have Through the Ages, Twilight Struggle, Evolution, Morels, Gone Shern Clever, which I don't know that it has multiplayer. Onitama, not sure if it has multiplayer. Catan, Onirim is solo. Star Realms, which you definitely can play with other people and download all of their extra expansions. I have Baseball Highlights 2045, On Tour, and Tokaido, which was actually free recently.
And I have Ticket to Ride.
And that's just on my phone, and that's not even near all the games. There's Splendor. I'm blanking on it now, but there's a ton of games on the App Store. And yeah, there might be a few bucks here and there. Some are like $10. But if that's something that you can do and you're interested in, it's definitely available.
And something that I've been doing with some of my clients in therapy. So I've switched to teletherapy over the last 2 weeks. And with my kid clients, I think I've said before, I often reward at the end of session with like 5 to 10 minutes of a game. I have found Connect Four, Uno online. Also found, of course, chess, checkers. Really, there's tons of like our classic board games. We think of like the classics, the Milton Bradleys that we played as a kid. A lot of those are online. Oh, Battleship too. And each of these are ones that one of us can open, send the link to the other one. We can both play simultaneously, which is fantastic.
It's very good. It's helpful a lot. And that actually leads to the next step of the board game world is you actually have, if you have a computer, a laptop, something like that, you actually have multiple websites and ways to play games online with other people. Sometimes they cost, sometimes they're free. That's going to be up to the individual game, the website, the system, whatever. But there's Board Game Arena, there's Tabletopia, there's Vassal, and I want to say there's one more website itself that I can't think of. But then there's also Tabletop Simulator on Steam, where people have built a lot of games in. I actually recently, me and Brian drafted his Magic Cube. I found a way, a website and everything that can import his cube list into Tabletop Simulator's cards. I then imported a bunch of lands, basic land types. So we drafted and actually played several games of Magic last night.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
It's very, very cool. And there's all kinds of board games and everything. But if that's something you're looking for, because some people don't like playing games solo, which is understandable. There's something intriguing about still having the tactility of a board game. The fact that you can touch the pieces and move them and maneuver this and flip over that. But then there's also something very awesome about the streamlined, like very efficient way to play through an app or a digital version or something like that, because some of those mechanics are taken care of. So when you do this play, it takes care of all the bookkeeping and all the upkeep. It grabs the cubes for you. You don't have to do it, which means there's no setup and there's no teardown.
There's no 18-minute video of Delton putting back together Rising Sun and all the boxes.
Yes, there's a terrible video. I did so poorly at it.
Don't forget, we also played with Jennifer and Nick. We used Discord to play a game of Decrypto.
Yeah, so there are games you can play through video chats, and it's a fantastic way to do it. They first showed us that they were doing Welcome To, where they had a camera up above and another camera on them, and they would flip the cards and everyone would fill out their sheets as long as you had the Welcome To sheets. Well, when we played with them, we played Decrypto, since the other side doesn't need to see what you're doing. We just set up our cards and wrote our clues down and shared all of our information and had a beer and had a good time chatting. And it was nice because I saw Jennifer at Gen Con last year, haven't seen her since, and I had never got to meet Nick, her husband, and she hadn't got to meet you. And so we all kind of got to meet and have some beer and talk about life and play 2 games of Decrypto before they went to make dinner. And there are multiple games. You're going to have to really think hard about that, of what games can be played that way. I think just one would work. Decrypto's fine.
Any of your roll and writes. Jinx, yell me a zebra.
As long as there's not like a really hidden mechanic, like something like T-Rex's Holiday would be fine. You just get out that extra die afterward and then everything's good. But a lot of these games are going to be dependent upon how you want to present it, but you can play games through Skype and stuff like that. So that's also something you can do to be able to get, live chat time and video chat and see your friends, but also play those games and have fun.
Because this social interaction is still important. I mean, even for introverts, we all want that connection, that interaction with people, at least a little bit. Doesn't mean that you go out to the club every Friday and Saturday night, but it means that we do long for that connection. And so it's really important, especially during this time, to be intentional about that connection, whether that is, making those phone calls and Skype calls, or really just playing board games with somebody over an app. It's important.
It really is. But that's the ways in which we see gaming in quarantine. I mean, obviously, there still comes the very simple, very liked by me video games. Video games are still a thing right now.
Nerd.
And, playing Cube with Brian. I've played a lot of Destiny 2 recently. I played some Teamfight Tactics with Kyle and Cullen last night. And I even streamed today a little bit to nobody to playing City Skylines for the first time because I always wanted to play that city building game. And now I want to restart my city since I have a better grasp of how the game works. And it's just, this is the time that you can do that, and it means more. It kind of shows you how lucky we are that we can connect so quickly and easily with our friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's something I feel like we've taken advantage of a little bit, but now that that's like the only connection we really have, aside from I'm obviously still going to work, aside from that, it's a big thing. So, yeah. I say, let's crack this next beer before we move to the question. So this second beer is also from Rough Tail. That might be where all of our beers are from in the near future.
Because that's the furthest that I'm going, because they do curbside, and I buy just enough that I can bleach in my car before I drive back home.
There you go. So this is a Crowler, which is a 32-ounce can that they fill on site and then seal it. So if you don't go to breweries or don't drink or have never gotten a growler is generally a 32 to 64, I think even bigger, ounce glass jar that they fill straight from the tap and then seal it off for you. Well, a Crowler is a can that they do the same thing, then they actually seal the can the same way they would with a 6-pack they sell in the store. But it's essentially that they fill it up right out of their taps fresh at the tap house, and then you just get to walk off site with it.
I see this can, and I think about the time that we played Edward 40 Hands, and I think, how did we survive?
The time you.
Oh, yeah. That was a rough night.
The time you made a bad decision.
That was a rough night. By God. And one of our friends, Sarah, duct taped a bottle of wine to her hand, and she just lived the American dream the whole night. I did see a meme that one of my coworkers shared that said, "You can't touch your face if you're playing Edward 40 Hands," and that's correct. For you guys who don't know what Edward 40 Hands is, it's another game that you can play, but play safely, please.
Please don't.
Please play safely. It's basically where you duct tape 2 40-ounce beverages, one to each hand.
Generally, a 40-ounce beverage is a malt liquor, like
Yes.
Mickey's or Old English.
I played this with Mickey's because I was young and dumb. And so you duct tape one to each hand, and the rule is you can't unduct tape it until you finish them.
Yeah, that's the rule. Nobody likes that game.
I have never seen this game played without at least 3 people throwing up.
There you go. So this beer from Rough Tail is Road Toad. I have no other information on the can as to what this beer is, what type it is, and I have it pulled up on my phone, but I did not read it. I found the Facebook post that says it, so we're going to try our best here.
Basically, they do, I think, 2 different brews every week, like 2 new ones.
Yeah.
And they kind of rotate it out. And so this week was Yggdrasil?
Yggdrasil.
Say it again.
It's basically like Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Which is like the tree in Valhalla.
It's the
right?
world tree in Norse mythology.
Okay. And this was the other one.
Yeah, Road Toad.
It smells really good.
It smells very good. It smells a little sweet. There's almost a hint of like orange.
It smells almost like a sweet sour.
Almost like, so let's
It's
try
like a
it.
gummy worm.
So go ahead and take a taste like
the
a gummy
worm of beers.
Oh my gosh. So we don't know what style it is. We're going to just do our best. It's very light in color, has a good head to it, smells very sweet and light.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Super tart. Oh my geez. Ooh,
Oh, wow.
That got me in the jaw.
That's a very wide difference between the, Polar Eclipse
yeah.
and this. Oh,
it's
man.
It's very, very tart.
It's very tart. Oh, my goodness.
It's very crisp with a good carbonation. You notice a carbonation right up front. It fades a bit as you swallow.
It has the mouthfeel of a cider without the sweetness, with more tart. It's still a beer, but it feels like a bubbly cider in your mouth.
It's not so sweet that it feels like thick sweet, and it's not so dry that it has that super drying outside amount of sweetness, but it's a middle ground. It is very cider-like though.
If this is what toads taste like, man, we probably have to rethink being vegan.
Just get the ones that have been run over on the road.
Oh God.
I have no clue as to what type of beer this is. So there's that.
I think it's a Berliner. I think it's what it said.
I'm going to read it now. It says our second release is Road Toad. Road Turd. Oh, I'm tired. Road Toad is a Berliner Weisse style sour with a pleasant tartness that finishes crisp and refreshing. That is for sure. It's
Oh,
definitely like a hint of a sour beer, as we said, very tart, and it's really good.
it is very good. It's like an adult gummy worm. That's what it is.
It's just like it's a beer version of a cider. Is what it tastes like to me. Like it's not very appley, but it's definitely a sour. It's
10 out of 10 would drink again.
definitely really
I,
good.
I would play Edward 30 hands with this.
I'm glad we still have a little bit. Now I'm going to tell you, listeners. Normally our beers are a 12-ounce can of beer, and we split two 12-ounce cans. This is 30-ounce can, so we had a half of that Polar Express, and then now we're going to have two full beers, and then there's still some in the can. So just to point that out.
It's a wild Saturday night. I'm
It's
going to have
wild
a rockin' bath time with my bubbles here in a minute.
rockin' bath time. All right, let's move to the question.
My rubber ducky.
And now, join us for a Malthaus Games Podcast special pint-sized question.
So the question for today is, how have you made the best of quarantine?
So this, I think I know this answer for Delton.
What's mine?
You have no plans. You're living the Delton dream.
Well, that's not how I've made the best of quarantine, but that is me loving the result of quarantine.
So how have you made the best of it, Delton?
There's still some people I want to see and stuff. However, I can stay at home all day, every day, and be fine. I have made the best of it by playing a lot of video games with friends. I don't get to play many video games with friends often. Like Brian mostly plays on Xbox, and I rarely touch my Xbox, but like we get home in the evening, we eat dinner. They get home in the evening, they eat dinner. We watch a little TV, and then it's like almost time for bed, and Brian and them do basically the same. So we don't get to play video games often, but we already got to play some. And I've been playing with Andrew and Elijah, playing a lot of Destiny 2. I played with Kyle and Cullen. Like, it's nice to be able to spend time playing with friends on video games again. It's rewarding because I miss it. I used to play with people a lot, and then it went from a lot to never. And so kind of having that introduce itself a little bit is really reinvigorating in a way. It's
Yeah.
kind of strange to say, but I think
It's
to me,
refreshing.
it is refreshing. To me, that's been the best thing I've done so far is just reliving and finding that love for playing games with friends again.
It's like everyone's available to reconnect.
We all have the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Haley? How are you making the best of quarantine?
So can I get on my psychology soapbox for a second?
If you'd like.
I'm going to talk a little bit about, these changes when it comes to quarantining and unfortunately losing jobs and really losing extracurriculars. And so, a lot of times we put a lot of our self-worth, or we put a lot of our identity in our roles. And like me as a therapist, I put a lot of my identity in that. I'm really proud of that. Or, my role as a writer or my role as a friend. Well, the problem is with the quarantine, a lot of times, a lot of us have lost those roles. We've lost our extracurricular activities, whether that is hosting board game nights, being a roller derby person, being a active member in a band, being an active member in some community event. Unfortunately, sometimes losing a job or losing that ability to connect people. We've lost a lot of these roles. And so in some ways, it feels like we've lost part of our identities in this because we really don't know how long this is going to be. And so, there's this basically guide that I went through, this kind of training I went through. And it really focused on, instead of looking at our self-worth or our fulfillment through our roles, looking at it through our values. So, if there was one case study I read that was this football player. Football player was within the NFL, played for years. That was part of his identity, got injured, paralyzed from the waist down, can no longer play football. Well, that's a major role that he's lost, and that was a major part of his identity that he couldn't get back. And so instead of looking at, I've lost this football playing ability, I'm never going to get that back, we look at what values were you living by in that. He lived by athleticism, he lived by camaraderie, he lived by competition. And so he ended up volunteering at nursing homes teaching chess, and that fulfilled that for him. I've worked a lot with clients who have lost their jobs or lost their extracurricular activities. And so instead of looking at, I've lost this part of me, what values was that serving? Was it the connection with people? Was it empathy? Was it independence? Was it creativity? What was the value that was underlying that role that you lost? What need was that serving? And so for me as a therapist, it's not just being a therapist making money, it's helping people, social connection. It is learning. And so, if you've lost something, whether it's temporarily or long term, society is going to be really wonky coming back together to begin with. But try to identify what kind of values that you have to live by. So for me, it's the social connection and the creativity. And so what I've been doing is FaceTiming and calling someone almost every day to talk to them on my walks. When I go for my walks, I normally make it a phone call walk to connect with somebody. And then I've really been taking time for guitar playing, writing, and I've taken a lot of naps. It's been glorious.
I mean, that's really good. It's a good way to look at it is a lot of us do identify as what our job is and what we do at our job. And we find that something we do in our job means more to us than we thought it did. And so that is good to find a way to essentially mitigate the loss of it by just utilizing it elsewhere.
Yeah.
As best we can.
So, a lot of that values-based work I stole from acceptance and commitment therapy, which you can find online. That's just psychoeducation stuff that I found on there.
Yeah.
That was helpful for me, because I'm a human being too. And, this is totally rock and roll because I'm a people person. I like people. I'm a social butterfly. Delton's called me his, what do you call me? Your social what?
I don't remember.
Like your social lubricant or something like that, like making social situations go by smoothly.
Oh, basically, I just let you take over.
Yeah.
And that way I can just stand there and stare into space.
Because I thrive on that. And so I've had to find other ways to meet those needs because I can't just go hang out with my friends. So I have to be intentional about that. And so that's how I've made the most of it.
I think that's good. I mean, however we can find that makes us feel the best, have the best mood, and be able to make it through this really odd, crazy, scary time, I think this is good. And you've got your ways now, and I've got my ways now, and hopefully we've helped you guys, listeners, figure out, maybe something that'll work for you to help you just be able to handle this odd change a little bit better.
Yeah, don't take my word for it. Go check it out. I mean, I'm not your therapist, so I can't say this is medical advice or
Oh, of
anything like
course.
that. But go check it out. Go find a values exploration activity. Kind of identify, what is it that I'm really living by whenever I'm choosing my career, choosing what extracurricular activities, or choosing who I hang out with, and try to find other ways to meet that. Because this is a lonely time. This is a hard time.
It really is.
Now, it's okay to grieve, and it's okay to try to find ways to thrive.
I think that that's a good way to close out this podcast is telling you all to, find a way to help yourself out, but also be safe, be careful. Hopefully,
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, don't touch your face, but hopefully you are all healthy and the ones you care about are healthy because, as much as we just want to brush this off and say, oh, everything's going to be fine, deep down inside, there's still that anxiety of this is scary and it could
Yes.
be very, very bad. And, hopefully all the precautions you're taking and everybody you care about are still in good health and all that good stuff.
It's hard to argue away anxiety right now because a lot of situations, anxiety is right. Like, this is scary.
Yeah.
And so just really focus on what's helpful. Whether or not the thought is, don't think about, I'm trying not to think about, what thoughts are true. I can't really argue away this anxiety is not going to happen, but rather focusing on what's helpful. What can I control in the situation?
Exactly.
I can control having bleach in my car to bleach my beer before I bring it inside. I can control if I leave. And I can control if I let Delton come inside after he's coming from work.
That's very true.
You're going to stay in the garage from now on.
That's fine. Take control of what you can and try to do the best you can, and that's all you can ask for. And if something doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. But hope for the best and do the best, I guess.
And don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, kids. Say no to drugs. Don't set the forest on fire. I can't remember what Smokey Bear says.
I mean, they have to stay inside right now anyway.
You can go in a forest. It's social distance.
I guess that's true. 6 feet of social distance between you and the fire.
That's very true. All right. I think that's it for the podcast today.
It evolved really quickly.
It really did. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 63 of the Malthaus Games podcast. If there's any topic you want us to talk about, question you want us to answer, game you want us to look at, if we happen to own it or may get it very easily, you can send us an email, contact@malthausgames.com. You can also check us out on all social media at Malthaus Games, Malthaus Games. You can find me personally at Delton Brack, DeltonBrack. You can find Haley at
SQUIRRELYGEEK.
at Squirrely Geek. I am playing a lot of video games right now, so just hit us up if you'd like to play video games with me or play an asynchronous board game app with me or play on Tabletop Simulator and do some Magic, games or something like that. I am down for it.
You can also message me on Twitter if you want to give me any kind of book reviews or book recommendations. I am looking for book recommendations right now. I'm currently reading Andrew's books he sent me. For Christmas, he sent me a PDF, a humble bundle PDF of really trashy romance novels, and they are fantastic. I will get a review to you soon, Andrew. But if anyone else has any book recommendations, feel free to send them my way.
Definitely. Until then, everybody stay safe out there, have a beer, and do everything happily, I guess.
Sit back, relax, play some games, and have a good time.
No, sit back, relax, grab a drink, and play some games.
Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and play some games.
And wash your hands.
And wash your hands. And wash your butt. Take a bath.
All right, we'll see you folks
Take
next
a bath.
time.
Wash yourself.
Okay, bye.